All right, let's dive into some ancient history today.
Sounds good.
We're talking about the Wars of the Diadochi,
Ooh, yeah.
and we're looking at a video called Sad End of Alexander's Empire Diadochi Wars, Every Battle, Full Story,
Oh, I love kings and
from
generals.
Kings and Generals on YouTube.
Yeah.
So this is the story of what happened after Alexander the Great died, and
All hell broke loose.
yeah, his generals decided to fight amongst themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what happens when you've got a power vacuum.
Right.
Someone's got to fill it.
And everyone that thinks they're the best choice.
Exactly.
So this video actually points out that it wasn't just about territory. They weren't just fighting for land.
Right.
They were fighting for the legacy of Alexander.
Absolutely. Yeah. They each wanted to kind of inherit his mantle and be seen as his true successor.
And one of the most fascinating things that happens right at the beginning
Yeah.
is that Ptolemy steals Alexander's body.
That's a bold move right out of the gate.
He diverts the funeral procession to Egypt
It's smart, though.
and claims that that was Alexander's wish to be buried in the land of the gods.
Yeah, well, maybe, but it was also definitely a good way to kind of legitimize his claim and get a leg up on the competition.
Right, because now he controls this very important symbolic thing.
Absolutely. Having the body of Alexander the Great,
Yeah.
that gives you some serious street cred in this game.
So can we get a rundown of who these Diadochis were?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of names thrown around: Antigonus, Seleucus, Ptolemy, Cassander.
Right, it's hard to keep them straight.
Yeah, it can be tough, especially because the alliances were constantly shifting.
Right.
But, let's try to paint a picture of some of the main players.
Okay.
So we've got Antigonus. He starts out controlling a big chunk of Asia Minor and the former Persian Empire.
Yeah.
He really saw himself as the rightful heir to Alexander's empire.
Right.
Ambitious guy, definitely ruthless, and as we'll see, maybe a little too confident for his own good.
Okay, and then we've got Seleucus.
Yeah, Seleucus, he's an interesting one.
Starts with a pretty small territory in Babylon, but ends up controlling a huge empire that stretched all the way to India.
Yeah, he's got a real knack for strategy, patient, methodical, and ultimately, one of the most successful of the Diadochis if you look at how long his dynasty lasted.
Right. And then down in Egypt, we've got Ptolemy.
Ptolemy, the master of playing the long game.
Consolidates his power in Egypt, builds up a really strong administration.
Yeah, focuses on culture, economic prosperity, really lays the foundation for the Ptolemaic dynasty that lasted for centuries.
So each of these guys had their own kind of style.
Yeah, totally.
Like they almost represent different aspects of Alexander himself.
It's true. They all kind of took pieces of what made Alexander great.
Right.
And then, you've got Alexander's family caught in the middle of all this.
Oh, yeah. Alexander's mother, Olympias, his wife, Roxana.
And the poor kid, Alexander V.
Yeah, his son.
All pawns in this game.
Yeah, and tragically, pawns that get sacrificed.
Yeah, Cassander, who was fighting for control of Macedon, he saw Alexander IV as a threat, so he had him and Roxana murdered.
It's a good reminder of how high the stakes were in this power struggle.
Oh, kidding.
So one of the early conflicts was the Lamian War.
Yeah, that kicked off just a year after Alexander died.
The Greeks tried to rebel against Macedonian rule.
Yeah, they figured with Alexander gone, it was their chance to break free.
Makes sense, but why did the Greeks resent the Macedonians so much?
Well, it was complicated, The Greeks had this long history of independent city-states and democratic ideals.
Right.
The Macedonian rule was more centralized, more autocratic. They weren't really fans of that.
I guess that makes sense.
Plus, there were economic grievances, too.
Right.
The Macedonians controlled a lot of the trade and resources.
So it was more than just wanting political independence.
Definitely. It was a clash of cultures, different values, different ways of life.
So what happened with this rebellion?
Didn't end well for the Greeks.
Right.
They had some initial success, but the Macedonians are just too strong.
The Battle of Cranon, right?
Yeah, that was the decisive one.
Right, that's where the Macedonian phalanx just crushed the Greek hoplites
Pretty much put an end to the rebellion,
and solidified Macedonian control over Greece.
at least for the time being.
So the Lamian War, short but significant.
Yeah, it showed just how fragile things were after Alexander's death.
Right, and how much resentment there was.
Plus, it kind of set the stage for the Diadochi to start fighting each other.
Right, they'd gotten a taste of victory.
And they wanted more.
One of those conflicts that really stands out is the Battle of the Camel's Rampart.
Oh yeah, Perdiccas versus Ptolemy.
Right, Perdiccas was trying to hold on to power as regent for the young Alexander V.
Right, and Ptolemy was already building his own power base down in Egypt.
Exactly, and this battle was a turning point.
It really was.
So Perdiccas decides he's going to invade Egypt.
Maybe he thought he could seize Alexander's body.
Right, and further legitimize his claim.
But Ptolemy was ready for him.
He used the terrain to his advantage.
The Nile River, a natural barrier.
Perdiccas's army didn't stand a chance.
No, it was a pretty bad defeat for Perdiccas.
And not only did he lose the battle, he lost his life.
Assassinated by his own generals.
Talk about a betrayal.
Yeah, it shows you just how ruthless these guys were.
No one was safe.
Not even your own allies.
So Perdiccas is out of the picture, and now there's another power vacuum.
Yep, things are about to get even crazier.
And that's where this interesting figure, Eumenes, comes in.
Eumenes, the Greek general who stayed loyal to Alexander's memory.
Right, he was a skilled guy, known for his intelligence and cunning.
He wasn't Macedonian, though.
Right, but he still rose through the ranks.
Alexander saw something in him, trusted him.
And after Alexander died, Eumenes was determined to protect the young Alexander I.
He wanted to keep the empire together.
Which, of course, made him a target.
Yeah, the other Diadochi saw him as an obstacle.
So he became this kind of tragic hero.
Fighting for a lost cause, betrayed by those he thought he could trust.
He faced some incredible odds.
He did, and he actually achieved some pretty amazing victories.
Like the Battle of the Hellespont?
Yeah, he outsmarted Crateros there.
Crateros, one of Alexander's top generals.
It was a brilliant display of strategy.
Eumenes used some unconventional tactics.
Yeah, psychological warfare.
He tricked his own troops.
It worked, though.
But in the end, Eumenes' loyalty to Alexander's family and his non-Macedonian background made him vulnerable.
Yeah, he was betrayed by his own troops, the Silver Shields.
The Silver Shields are the elite, right?
Absolutely. Veteran Macedonian soldiers, some of the best.
And they turned on him.
Yeah, it was at the Battle of Gabiane.
That's where Antigonus captured Eumenes' baggage train.
Yeah, it was a disaster.
All the supplies, families, personal treasures.
Gone.
The Silver Shields felt abandoned.
They panicked. Their families were at risk.
And Antigonus saw his chance.
He offered them a deal.
Surrender Eumenes and everything would be returned.
And they took it.
Wow.
So Eumenes, the loyal general, the brilliant strategist, betrayed by his own men.
It's a pretty sad ending.
It is a reminder that loyalty can be a fragile thing.
So Eumenes is gone, and Antigonus is looking pretty strong.
He's definitely gaining power.
But what about the other Diadochi?
Oh, they're not going to just sit back and watch.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah, the struggle for control is far from over.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Wars of the Diadochi.
Back for more.
We left off with Antigonus sort of winning.
Yeah, getting rid of Eumenes, that was a big win for him.
But he still has rivals.
Oh, yeah, definitely didn't get rid of everyone.
Especially Seleucus.
Yeah, Seleucus was down in Babylon, just kind of waiting for the right moment.
He was smart.
Yeah, he wasn't going to just rush into anything.
So while Antigonus is consolidating his power in the West, what's Seleucus doing?
Well, he's building his own power base in Babylon, right? Getting stronger, making alliances.
This video makes it sound like he was playing the long game.
Oh, for sure. He was a patient guy, knew how to wait for the right opportunity.
And that opportunity was the Babylonian War.
Yeah. This was Seleucus's time to shine.
It doesn't get as much attention as some of the other conflicts.
No, but it's really important for understanding how Seleucus became so powerful.
So Seleucus gets kicked out of Babylon by Antigonus at first.
Right.
But then he comes back with a small force and recaptures the city.
That was a bold move.
Talk about daring.
Yeah. And it was a huge symbolic victory for him.
It showed everyone that he was a serious contender.
Exactly. No one was going to underestimate him after that.
But Antigonus wasn't just going to let him keep Babylon.
Of course not.
He sent his son Demetrius.
Demetrius Poliorcetes, the besieger.
They called him that for a reason.
Yeah, he was a siege warfare expert.
And he was determined to take Babylon back.
It was a pretty epic siege.
The video shows all these crazy siege weapons they were using back then.
Yeah, siege towers, battering rams, catapults.
I can't even imagine what it would have been like to be there.
It would have been terrifying, that's for sure.
All that noise and chaos.
And the constant threat of being crushed or burned alive.
Seleucus must have been feeling the pressure.
Oh, definitely. But he held his own.
He was resourceful.
Used guerrilla tactics, launched surprise attacks, knew how to use the city's defenses to his advantage.
He was learning from the best.
That's right. He'd seen Alexander in action.
And he knew he couldn't beat Demetrius in a straight-up fight.
So he had to be smart.
He used a Fabian strategy, right?
Exactly. Delaying, wearing down the attrition, waiting for the right moment to strike.
And that moment came at the Battle of 25 Abu.
Oh, yeah, the night attack.
Seleucus caught Demetrius completely off guard,
Brilliant move. Total chaos.
and a decisive victory for Seleucus,
He cemented his control over Babylon.
and sent a message to Antigonus.
Yeah, that message was, I'm not going anywhere.
Antigonus must have been furious.
Oh, I'm sure he was.
He personally led a huge army to try and take Babylon back.
Antigonus was not one to back down from a challenge.
But Seleucus knew he couldn't win that fight.
So he did something unexpected
He abandoned Babylon.
and retreated east into Persia.
Seemed like a risky move.
It was, but it was also strategic.
He was drawing Antigonus deeper into unfamiliar territory.
Exactly, stretching his supply lines, making him vulnerable.
It was a trap.
In a way, yeah.
Seleucus was biding his time,
Waiting for the right moment to strike back.
and knowing Antigonus,
Yeah.
he was probably going to make a mistake.
Antigonus was a proud man, maybe a little too proud.
And that's where we'll pick up next time.
Oh, things are about to get really interesting.
Welcome back to our deep dive. We were talking about Seleucus retreating from Babylon.
Yeah, smart move.
It seemed risky, but it was all part of his plan.
He knew what he was doing.
So while Antigonus is off chasing him, what's going on with the other Diadochi?
Well, things were heating up elsewhere, too.
The video mentions a siege of Rhodes.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
What was that all about?
Well, Rhodes had stayed neutral in all this fighting.
Smart move, probably.
Yeah, but Antigonus didn't like that.
Of course not.
He saw them as a threat.
Because of their location.
Yeah, and their trade network.
Made sense.
So he sent Demetrius to take care of it.
Demetrius the Besieger,
The one and only.
fresh off his defeat in Babylon.
Probably eager to prove himself.
Yeah, he wanted to get back to winning.
So he brought a massive army and all his best siege weapons.
Right, to crush the Rhodians.
But the Rhodians were tough.
They weren't going down without a fight,
They had a good navy.
and skilled engineers.
Plus, Ptolemy was helping them out.
Sending supplies.
So they managed to hold out for over a year.
Wow, that's impressive.
It was a real test of their strength.
The video talks about this crazy siege tower that Demetrius built,
Oh, yeah, the Helepolis.
the city taker.
Not very subtle.
But hey, it sounds pretty badass.
It was this huge 9-story tower.
Covered in iron.
Catapults, ballistae, the whole works.
So did it work?
Well, it was impressive, no doubt.
But not very practical.
It was slow, hard to maneuver.
And the Rhodians were clever.
Oh, yeah, they found ways to counter it.
Dug trenches, threw stuff at
They
it.
even tried to set it on fire.
Sounds like they were pretty resourceful.
They had to be.
So who won?
Well, neither side could really get the upper hand.
Stalemate?
After a year, Demetrius had to give up,
Too many losses.
and he had other problems to deal with.
So the besieger was bested.
It happens.
That must have been a blow to his ego.
And to Antigonus, too.
Showed their rivals they weren't invincible.
Gave everyone some hope.
Meanwhile, Seleucus is getting ready to make his move,
Yeah, he'd been busy.
building up his power in the east.
Made a treaty with Chandragupta in India.
Got himself a big army and a lot of money.
He was ready to take on Antigonus.
This is leading up to the big showdown,
The Battle of Ipsus.
the climax of the Wars of the Diadochi.
It was a massive battle.
Tens of thousands of soldiers.
War elephants, cavalry charges.
The whole shebang.
It was a clash of titans.
Antigonus and Demetrius versus...
Seleucus, Lysimachus, and Cassander.
They all brought everything they had.
It was a fight for control of the Hellenistic world.
The video describes it as pure chaos.
It was loud, confusing, brutal,
Demetrius led a cavalry charge,
tried to break through the enemy lines.
but it didn't work,
He got separated from his infantry and had to retreat.
leaving Antigonus exposed.
And Antigonus, well,
He went down fighting,
refused to retreat.
died on the battlefield.
A fitting end for a warrior.
So that was the end of Antigonus.
And pretty much the end of the Diadochi Wars.
Decades of conflict.
Well, over...
What a story.
It's incredible.
So who were the winners?
Well, Seleucus was the biggest winner, for sure.
He got a huge chunk of territory.
Created the Seleucid Empire.
One of the major powers of the Hellenistic age.
Ptolemy down in Egypt.
Kept doing his thing.
Building up his kingdom.
His dynasty lasted for centuries.
Amazing.
And Lysimachus.
He got some of Antigonus's land.
But he didn't last as long,
Seleucus defeated him eventually.
leaving Seleucus in control.
He was the top dog.
So these wars all led to the creation of the Hellenistic kingdoms.
That's right.
It's crazy to think about.
All that bloodshed and chaos.
Reshaped the world.
History is wild.
What can we learn from all this?
Well, I think it shows us the power of ambition.
And how things can spiral out of control.
When there's a power vacuum
The choices these leaders made had a huge impact.
on the course of history.
It's fascinating how these events from so long ago,
Still resonate today.
we can see parallels in the modern world.
Definitely power struggles, political rivalries.
It's all part of human nature.
We're still fighting over the same things.
It makes you think.
It does.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the wars of the Diadochi.
What a journey.
We covered a lot of ground.
From Alexander's death to the rise of empires.
It's been a wild ride.
I hope everyone enjoyed it.
I know I did.
It's always fascinating to delve into history
To see how the past shapes the present.
and how it can teach us lessons for the future.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.
Keep exploring.